The snow doesn't fall here. It descends like a judgment, silent and absolute, erasing the trail she walked an hour ago, erasing the ridgeline, erasing everything but the rhythm of her own breath, clouding white in the freezing air. She stops because her boot finds ice beneath the powder, and because somewhere in the static hush of the forest, she hears it again, a sound. Small, desperate. A cry that shouldn't exist this deep into winter when everything with sense has denned or flown south or died. The mountain girl stands motionless, 16 years old and alone in a wilderness that has already taken her parents, her home, everything except the cabin she barely keeps warm, and the stubborn will that pulls her forward one frozen day at a time. The cry comes again, thin, starving. She knows that sound the way you know hunger in your own belly. It's the sound of something dying unless someone interferes. She should turn back. The blizzard is building, the sky pressing lower, the kind of storm that locks you in for days or buries you if you're caught outside. But her feet are already moving through the drifts toward the old cedar grove, where the sound is coming from. And she knows with the sick certainty of someone who has lost too much already that what she finds there will change everything. Her name is Rowan, though no one has spoken it aloud in 4 months. The wildfire that tore through the valley last summer took the house she grew up in, the neighbors who might have looked after her, and both her parents who stayed too long trying to save the horses. She survived because she was up on the ridge checking the high fence line. By the time she made it back down, there was nothing but ash and the skeletal frames of buildings she used to know. The authorities came through once, social workers with clipboards and kind eyes, talking about foster placement in a town 3 hours away. She told them she had an aunt coming. She lied. They left her their card and a week's worth of meal kits and never returned. That was August. This is January. The cabin she's been living in isn't even hers. It belonged to a man who worked the trapline decades ago. Abandoned now, one room with a loft and a wood stove that smokes if the wind turns north. She found it by accident a week after the fire, hiking higher to get away from the scorched valley, and moved in because the alternative was a group home where she'd be one more lost kid with no story anyone wanted to hear. She made a choice. Survive here or surrender there. Every morning she wakes to frost on the inside of the windows and the weight of silence so thick it feels like pressure on her chest. Every night she builds the fire just high enough to keep from freezing and lies in the loft wrapped in 2 wool blankets and her father's old coat, which still smells like wood smoke and diesel and the life she'll never get back. She learned to survive the way desperate things do. Trial and ice and error. The cabin had a few rusted traps in the shed, a dented pot and a hatchet with a loose handle. She taught herself to set snares for rabbits, to melt snow for water, to split kindling even when her hands were so numb she couldn't feel the axe. She burned through the pile of firewood the previous owner left in 3 weeks and had to start scavenging deadfall from the forest, dragging branches twice her height back through snow that came up to her thighs. She made mistakes. She ate a handful of frozen berries that left her retching for 2 days. She let the fire go out one night and woke shaking so hard she thought her bones would crack. But she learned. The forest taught her in the only language it knows, consequence. Do this or freeze. Do this or starve. Do this or die. By December she had a rhythm. Rise before dawn. Build the fire, melt snow. Check the snares. Gather wood. Patch the gaps in the cabin walls with moss and mud that froze solid as mortar. Eat sparingly. Sleep poorly, survive. It wasn't living. It was the mechanical process of not dying. She felt herself growing smaller inside her own skin, a ghost tending a fire in a place no one would ever look for her. And then the snow came in earnest. The true winter snow, and even that grim routine became harder. The drifts climbed past the windows. The cold turned vicious, the kind that burns your lungs and bites through every layer. The forest went silent, no birds, no wind some days, just the terrible stillness of a world holding its breath. She started talking to herself just to hear a human voice, started rationing the dried meat and flour she'd scavenged from an abandoned ranger cache 2 valleys over, started wondering, in the darkest hours before dawn, whether she'd made the wrong choice, whether surrendering would have been smarter, whether survival without purpose was just a slower kind of dying. That's the state she's in when she hears the cry. Hollowed out, functional, alone, moving through the winter like a machine because stopping means thinking, and thinking means feeling, and feeling is a luxury she can't afford. but the sound cuts through all of it. Something living, something suffering. And before her mind can list all the reasons to turn back, her body is already pushing through the snow toward the cedar grove, toward whatever is dying there in the cold. She finds him in the hollow beneath a massive fallen cedar, a space barely large enough to crawl into, and at first she thinks he's already dead. A bear cub, maybe 3 months old, dark fur matted with ice and dirt, ribs showing like barrel staves beneath the skin. His eyes are closed. His breathing is shallow, the tiny chest rising and falling with a rhythm so faint she has to crouch down and watch for 10 full seconds to be sure it's happening at all. The snow around him is trampled and old, signs of a struggle or a den abandoned in haste. No sign of the mother, no tracks. Just this small dying thing curled in on itself in the insufficient shelter of rotting wood. Rowan's first thought is clear and cold. Leave him. This is wild. This is nature. Interfering is dangerous, illegal, stupid on every level. If the mother comes back, she could kill you. If wildlife services found out you touched him, they'd prosecute. If you bring him to the cabin, he could have disease, parasites, anything. And even if none of that happens, he's too far gone. Look at him. He's starving. He won't make it. But her second thought is quieter and it cuts deeper. He's alone. Just like you. And no one came for you either. She kneels in the snow and the cold seeps through her jeans, and she reaches out one bare hand, because she took her glove off without thinking, and touches the cub's side. The fur is coarse and frozen, and beneath it she feels the faint flutter of a heartbeat, fragile as a bird's. He doesn't move, doesn't flinch, doesn't even open his eyes. That's how close he is to gone. She sits back on her heels and looks around the grove, scanning for tracks, for scat, for any sign of the mother bear. Nothing. The snow here is days old, wind-blown and crusty. Whatever happened, it happened a while ago. Maybe the mother was killed. Maybe she abandoned a weak cub. Maybe she got disoriented coming out of the den too early. A warm snap followed by this brutal cold, and the cub couldn't keep up. It doesn't matter. The result is the same. He'll be dead by morning. Unless, the word hangs in her mind, unless. She thinks about the cabin, the fire, the pot she uses to melt snow. She thinks about the half can of evaporated milk she's been saving, the wool blanket, the warmth. She thinks about the risk and the foolishness, and the fact that she has no idea how to care for a wild animal, let alone a bear. And then she thinks about the sound he made, that thin, desperate cry, and the way it echoed the hollow feeling inside her own chest. She makes the decision the way you make all the ones that matter. Without logic, without permission. She shrugs off her backpack and pulls out the emergency blanket, the crinkly silver thing she's carried for months and never used, and she wraps it around the cub as gently as she knows how. He's heavier than he looks, dense with bone and muscle even in starvation, and lifting him makes her shoulder scream where she strained it hauling wood last week. But she gets him into her arms, cradles him against her chest and starts the long walk back. The blizzard hits halfway home. The sky disappears. The world becomes a whiteout scream of wind and ice, and she can't see 10 feet ahead. She navigates by memory and feel, counting the steps between landmarks she knows by heart. The lightning-split pine, the boulders shaped like a crouching cat, the frozen creek bed. The cub is a dead weight in her arms. She can't tell if he's still breathing. Her own breath soars in her throat. The cold is a living thing trying to claw inside her coat. Twice she stumbles and nearly goes down. And if she falls, she's not sure she'll get back up. But she keeps moving because stopping is death, and because the small body in her arms is warm, the only warmth in a frozen world, and she will not let it go out. When she finally sees the dark shape of the cabin through the snow, she wants to cry, but her tears would freeze, so she just pushes harder, kicks the door open, and stumbles inside. The cabin is barely warmer than outside. The fire's died to ash. She lays the cub on the floor near the stove, still wrapped in the blanket, and forces her numb fingers to work, stuffing kindling and birch bark into the firebox, striking the ferro rod once, twice, 6 times before the spark catches. The flame is small and beautiful, and she feeds it carefully, adding splits of pine, then oak, building it up until the heat starts to push back the cold. Only then does she turn to the cub. In the firelight she can see him better. He's bigger than she thought, maybe 20 pounds, with a broad head and small rounded ears, His fur is a deep brown, almost black in places, matted with filth and ice. His eyes are still closed. His breathing is fast and shallow now, a bad sign, the body burning through its last reserves. She doesn't know what to do. She's not a vet. She's not even good with pets. But she knows hypothermia, and she knows starvation. And she knows that warmth and food are the only things that matter in the next few hours. She fills the pot with snow and sets it on the stove to melt. While it heats, she examines the cub more closely, running her hands over his body, feeling for injuries. There's a gash on his left hind leg, crusty with dried blood, not deep but infected, the skin around it hot and swollen. She finds a tick buried behind his ear and pulls it out with her fingernails. His paws are cracked and raw. His belly is concave, but nothing's broken. That's something. When the water is warm, not hot, she soaks a rag and starts cleaning him, wiping away the filth and ice, working gently around the wound. He doesn't wake, doesn't stir. She's not sure if that's good or bad. Once he's cleaner, she wraps him in the dry wool blanket and tucks him close to the stove, as near as she dares without risking burns. Then she turns to the problem of food. She has no idea what to feed a bear cub. The evaporated milk feels like the right start, something her gut tells her based on nothing but instinct and half-remembered nature shows. She pours a few tablespoons into a tin cup and warms it over the fire, testing it on her wrist the way her mother used to test bottles. Body temperature. She kneels beside the cub and tries to get him to drink, tilting the cup against his mouth, but his jaw is clenched and the liquid just runs off into the blanket. She tries again. Nothing. Panic starts to rise in her chest, the cold fear that she's carried him all this way just to watch him die on her floor. Then she remembers something, a video, a documentary. Newborns don't drink, they suckle. She dips her finger in the warm milk and touches it to his gums, rubbing gently. For a long moment, nothing happens. Then his tongue moves. A weak, reflexive lick. She does it again. Another lick. Stronger this time. She keeps going, patient and steady, dipping her finger, letting him taste, and slowly, so slowly, he starts to respond. His mouth opens. His breathing deepens. She manages to get a few drops in, then a few more. It's not much. Maybe a tablespoon total. But it's something. It's life. She stays up all night, feeding him every hour, keeping the fire high, checking his breathing. The wound on his leg worries her, so she boils water and uses a clean rag to wash it again, then packs it with a paste made from crushed yarrow she gathered last fall, one of the few plants she knows has antiseptic properties. He whimpers when she touches it, the first sound he's made since she brought him in, and the sound breaks something open inside her chest. He's in pain. He's fighting. He's alive. By dawn he's warmer. His breathing is steadier, and when she dips her finger in the milk, he latches on and suckles with real strength, his small claws flexing against her hand. She feels tears sting her eyes, and this time she lets them fall because there's no one here to see. And because for the first time in 4 months, she feels something other than the dull ache of survival. She feels needed. She feels purpose. This small broken thing depends on her, and that makes her real again. The days blur together after that. She names him Cinder, for the ash he was pulled from, for the fire that saved them both. He grows stronger slowly. By the 3rd day, he can lift his head. By the 5th, he's opening his eyes, dark and bright and curious. She graduates from finger feeding to a makeshift bottle, a plastic water bottle with a hole cut in the cap. Not perfect, but functional. She mixes the evaporated milk with warm water and a little honey, rationing her supplies, knowing she'll run out soon and have no idea what comes next. He drinks eagerly now, gulping it down, milk running down his chin. After he eats, he sleeps, curled in the wool blanket by the fire, and she watches him breathe and feels the knot in her chest loosen just a fraction. She talks to him while she works, tells him about her parents, about the fire, about the valley she'll never see again. He doesn't understand, but he listens, his ears swiveling toward her voice, and that's enough. She tells him things she's never said out loud, that she's scared, that she doesn't know what she's doing, that some days she wakes up and wishes she hadn't. He just blinks at her with those dark eyes and yawns and falls back asleep, and somehow that's exactly the response she needs. By the 2nd week, he's mobile. He wobbles around the cabin on unsteady legs, sniffing everything, chewing on the corner of her blanket, batting at her bootlaces. The infection in his leg is clearing, the swelling down, the wound closing clean. He's gaining weight, his ribs less prominent, his fur starting to fluff out. He plays clumsy and rough, pouncing on her hand, gnawing on her fingers with teeth that are still milk-sharp but getting stronger. She knows she should discourage it, keep distance, not let him imprint. But she's so starved for connection that she lets him climb into her lap and fall asleep against her stomach, his breath warm through her shirt. Those are the best moments, the cabin filled with firelight and the sound of his snoring and the wind outside like a wolf that can't get in. She feels something she hasn't felt since the fire, safe, not alone. Like maybe surviving is worth it after all. But she's not naive. She knows what he is, a wild animal, a bear. In 6 months he'll be too big to handle. In a year he could kill her without meaning to. She can't keep him. This is temporary, a winter of need, hers and his. And when the snow melts and the world opens up again, she'll have to let him go. She tells herself this every day. Reminds herself, this is rescue, not adoption. You're giving him a chance to live, not making him a pet. When spring comes, you'll take him back to the wild where he belongs. The thought should comfort her, but it doesn't. It just makes the warmth of his body against hers feel more fragile, more precious, like something she's borrowing and will have to return. The first crisis comes at the end of the 3rd week. She wakes to a sound like the mountain breathing, a low moan that vibrates through the walls. The wind, not the normal wind, the one that whistles and gusts, but something deeper, older. The kind of wind that precedes the storms people tell stories about. She climbs down from the loft and finds Cinder already awake, pacing, agitated. He knows, animals always know. She checks her supplies. Firewood stacked inside. Enough for 3 days if she's careful. Food. A 1/4 bag of flour, 2 handfuls of dried meat, half a can of milk. Water. The pot full of melted snow. It's not enough, but it'll have to be. She braces the door with a split log and stuffs rags into the gaps around the window frame. Then the storm hits. It's not snow. It's a whiteout. A wall of wind and ice that hammers the cabin like it wants to rip it off the mountain. The noise is constant, a roar that drowns out thought. Snow forces its way through cracks she didn't know existed, piling on the floor in small drifts. The temperature inside drops so fast she can see her breath even 3 feet from the fire. She feeds the stove constantly, burning through wood faster than she planned, but the heat barely holds. Cinder huddles against her, shivering. She wraps them both in the blankets and they sit together on the floor with their backs to the stove, and the cabin shakes and the wind screams, and she wonders if the walls will hold. The storm lasts 2 days, 2 days of darkness and cold and noise. She runs out of firewood on the 2nd night and has to make a choice: burn the chair, the table, or freeze. She chooses the chair, smashes it apart with the hatchet, and feeds it to the stove piece by piece. The heat is brief but real. Cinder stops shivering. She stops shaking. They make it through the night. When the storm finally breaks and she digs out the door, the world outside is transformed. The snow is chest deep. The forest is gone, buried under white. And she knows with sick certainty that she won't be able to get to the frozen creek where she sometimes finds deadfall. They're trapped, and the wood she has left will last maybe 1 more day. She makes another choice. She takes the hatchet and goes out into the snow, wading through drifts that try to swallow her, looking for anything she can burn. She finds a dead pine 30 yards from the cabin, tips broken off by the wind. She hacks at the branches with numb hands, dragging them back one at a time. It takes all day. Her shoulders scream. Her fingers crack and bleed. But by nightfall, she has enough wood for another week, and she and Cinder are safe by the fire again, and she lets herself feel the exhaustion, the bone-deep tiredness of someone who just survived something that could have ended them. Cinder licks her hand. She rests her forehead against his fur. They made it, together. The 2nd crisis is worse because it's not external. It's Cinder. She notices it on a morning that starts normal. He won't eat. He turns his head away from the bottle and makes a sound she's never heard before. A low, distressed moan. She checks him over and her stomach drops. He's hot, burning up. The infection is back, or maybe it never left, just went deeper. His leg is swollen again, the wound oozing. His eyes are glassy. He's panting even though the cabin is cold. Fever. She's seen it before in animals, seen it kill. She doesn't have antibiotics, doesn't have a vet, doesn't have anything but the plants she knows and the hope that there'll be enough. She boils water, and makes a strong tea from yarrow and pine needles, both antiseptic, both risky because she's not sure of the dose. She lets it cool and uses a rag to drip it into his mouth. He gags and struggles, but she holds him firm, gets a few swallows down. Then she cleans the wound again, draining the pus, packing it with fresh yarrow paste and a poultice made from chewed willow bark. It's medieval. It's desperate. It's all she has. The fever climbs through the day. By evening he's convulsing, small tremors that shake his whole body. She wraps him in cold rags to bring the temperature down, then warm blankets when he starts shivering again. She doesn't sleep. She sits with him through the night, spooning water into his mouth, checking his breathing, whispering promises she's not sure she can keep. You're going to be okay. You have to be okay. I didn't carry you through a blizzard just to lose you now. Somewhere near dawn he goes still, and for a terrible moment she thinks he's gone. Then his chest rises, falls, rises again. The tremors stop. She touches his forehead and the heat is less. Still there, but less. The fever's breaking. She sags against the wall, shaking with relief, and Cinder opens his eyes and looks at her and makes a soft sound, almost a purr, and she laughs, a broken, exhausted sound, and pulls him into her lap. He's weak, he's fragile, but he's alive. Over the next 3 days he improves, starts eating again, starts moving. The wound finally starts to heal clean. She realizes, watching him play with a pine cone near the fire, that she would have done anything to save him, would have walked into town and risked being caught, would have given up her own food, her own warmth. He's become the thing she lives for, and that terrifies her because she knows she can't keep him. But for now, in this moment, he's here and he's hers, and that's enough. The third crisis is her own fault. Supplies are running critically low. The flour is gone. The meat is gone. The milk is gone. She's been feeding Cinder mashed acorn paste and whatever small game she can trap, but the snares have been empty for days. Everything's denned. Everything's gone. She needs food and she needs it now. There's a ranger cache she found once, 2 valleys over, past the frozen creek and through the boulder field. It's a hard hike in summer, in winter. In snow this deep, it's dangerous. But she's out of options. She leaves Cinder in the cabin with the fire banked and the door wedged shut. He cries when she goes, and it nearly breaks her resolve, but she forces herself out into the snow. The hike is brutal. The cold is a knife in her lungs. She makes it to the creek, crosses carefully, testing the ice with a branch before each step. She's halfway across when she hears it. A crack, a sound like a gunshot. The ice splits beneath her left boot and she goes through. The water is so cold it stops her heart. She gasps and swallows water, and her body locks up, every muscle seizing. She claws at the ice, the current pulling at her legs, trying to drag her under. Her fingers find purchase. She pulls, kicks, gets one knee up on the solid edge. The ice breaks again. She goes under. Everything is black and cold and silent. This is it, she thinks. This is how it ends. Then something inside her, some stubborn animal part, refuses. She thrashes, finds the surface, finds the edge, hauls herself out onto solid ice and crawls, soaked and shaking, to the far bank. She doesn't remember the hike to the cache, doesn't remember breaking the lock or filling her pack with cans of soup and beans and a jar of peanut butter. She just remembers the cold, the terrible cold, and the knowledge that if she doesn't get back to the cabin, to the fire, in the next hour she'll die of hypothermia. She makes it back in a fugue state, body moving on autopilot. She doesn't feel her feet, doesn't feel her hands. When she reaches the cabin and pushes inside, Cinder rushes at her, whining, pawing at her legs. She collapses by the stove and he climbs on top of her, licking her face, her hands, his body warm against her frozen skin. She strips off the wet clothes with fingers that won't bend and wraps herself in every blanket she owns. Cinder burrows in with her, a living furnace, and they lie together while the fire builds, and slowly, the cold releases its grip. Her toes burn as they thaw. Her fingers scream, but she's alive. And Cinder is pressed against her chest, and his heartbeat is steady and strong, and she realizes he kept her going. The knowledge that he was here, waiting, needing her. He saved her just by existing. The rescue, she understands, has always gone both ways. The fourth crisis comes from outside. She's splitting wood behind the cabin, Cinder playing nearby in the snow, when she sees the tracks. Fresh, massive, paw prints twice the size of her hand, clawed and deep. Bare. An adult. Male, probably a boar, wandering, disoriented, wakened early by the odd warm spell they had before the last storm. She feels the hair rise on her neck. If a male bear finds Cinder, he'll kill him. That's what they do. She scoops the cub up and rushes him inside, bolts the door. That night, she doesn't sleep. She sits by the window with the hatchet in her lap and listens. Around midnight, she hears it. Movement. Heavy, deliberate. The sound of something big circling the cabin. Cinder hears it too. He goes still, ears flat, a low growl rumbling in his chest. She holds her breath. The footsteps come closer. Something sniffs at the door. She grips the hatchet and thinks, this is it. If he comes through, I'll fight. I'll lose, but I'll fight. The sniffing continues. Then stops. Silence, she waits. 5 minutes, 10, nothing. Whatever it was, it's moved on. She lets out a shaking breath. Cinder relaxes, but she knows they're not safe. Not really. The wilderness is full of things bigger and stronger, and she's just a girl with a hatchet. All she can do is be ready and hope luck stays on their side. The biggest test comes in late February. A month of relative calm, of routines established, of Cinder growing strong and playful, of her finding a rhythm she almost trusts. Then the temperature swings. A warm front moves in, unseasonably warm, and the snow on the cabin roof starts to melt. She hears it at night, the drip and rush of water. And in the back of her mind, a warning bell rings, but she's too tired to heed it. She wakes to a sound like thunder. The roof is collapsing. She has 1 second to react. She rolls off her sleeping platform in the loft, just as a section of the ceiling caves in. Timber and soaked insulation, and a crushing weight of heavy wet snow pouring into the space where she was lying. She hits the floor hard, the wind knocked out of her. Above her, the loft is destroyed. The main room is chaos, snow and debris everywhere. The fire nearly smothered, and Cinder is screaming. Not a cub sound, a distress call, high and panicked. She struggles to her feet, coughing, disoriented. He's buried. She can see one paw sticking out from under a beam and a pile of snow. She throws herself at the debris, digging with her bare hands, heaving the beam aside with strength she didn't know she had. Her shoulder pops, a flare of pain, but she doesn't stop. She clears the snow and pulls him out. He's shaking but alive. No broken bones. She clutches him to her chest and looks up at the ruined roof. Cold air pours in through the gap. The fire is dying. The cabin is no longer a shelter. She makes a decision in seconds. The old barn. There's a collapsed barn a quarter-mile south. 3 walls still standing, roof mostly intact. She's avoided it because it's farther from her trap line, but it's shelter. And right now, that's all that matters. She gathers what she can carry. The hatchet, the pot, the blankets, the remaining food. She wraps Cinder in a blanket and holds him against her chest with one arm, the pack on her back. Then she steps out into the night. The warm spell has turned the snow slushy and treacherous. She sinks to her knees with every step. The journey that should take 10 minutes takes an hour. She's gasping by the time she reaches the barn. Her shoulder a ball of fire, her legs trembling. But the barn is there, solid, dry. She pushes inside and sets Cinder down and collapses against the wall. But there's no time to rest. She needs fire. Needs it now. The temperature is already dropping again, the warm spell breaking. And without the cabin's insulation, they'll freeze. She gathers scraps of old wood from the barn, dry timber that's been protected from the snow. Her hands are shaking so hard, she can barely hold the ferro rod. She strikes once, twice, nothing, 10 times, nothing. The spark won't catch. Desperation claws at her. Cinder is shivering, curled in the blanket. She's shivering. They're out of time. She closes her eyes and steadies her breathing and thinks of her father, who taught her to start fires on river trips, who always said, slow is smooth and smooth is fast. She strikes again, deliberate, controlled. The spark catches. The tinder smokes. She blows gently, feeding it, and a flame curls to life. She almost sobs. She builds the fire carefully, adding wood piece by piece, and the warmth spreads and Cinder crawls close and they're safe. For now. The next days are a test of everything she's learned. The barn is better than nothing, but it's not a cabin. The wind cuts through the gaps in the walls. The roof leaks. She patches what she can with pine boughs and packed snow. She fashions a door from an old piece of plywood propped against the entrance. She moves the fire to the center, where the smoke can escape through a hole in the roof. It's primitive. It's precarious, but it works. And Cinder, she realizes, is helping. He alerts her when the wind shifts and smoke starts to fill the barn. He finds a gap in the wall she missed, pawing at it until she notices and patches it. At night he sleeps pressed against her back, his body heat keeping her warm when the fire burns low. They've become a team, not girl and pet, not human and animal, something else. Partners in survival, each keeping the other alive. One night she wakes to him nudging her face, insistent, and she realizes the fire's gone out and she's dangerously cold, her thoughts fuzzy, her body sluggish. Hypothermia setting in. He won't stop nudging, pawing, even nipping at her hand. The small pain jolts her awake. She forces herself up, relights the fire, and as the warmth returns, she wraps her arms around him and whispers, "You saved me." Again. He licks her face. She laughs. It's a broken, exhausted sound, but it's real. They've survived the collapse, the move, the brutal cold. They've survived together. And she knows now with absolute certainty that she wouldn't have made it without him. He gave her a reason to keep fighting when every other reason was gone. The change comes slowly. So slowly she almost doesn't notice. The days grow longer, the sun lingering past 4 in the afternoon. The brutal edge of the cold softens. The snow stops falling. She wakes one morning to a sound she hasn't heard in months. Water running. Snowmelt. She steps outside and the air smells different, loamy and alive. Cinder bounds out after her, bigger now, almost 60 pounds. His movements confident and strong. He digs in the softening snow and unearths a patch of dead grass, and she laughs watching him discover it like treasure. Spring is coming. The thought fills her with joy and grief in equal measure. Spring means survival. It also means letting go. Over the next weeks, the mountain transforms. The snow recedes, revealing the forest floor, the rocks, the trails. Birds return, their calls bright and foreign after the long silence. She sees deer, a fox, signs of life emerging from hibernation. Cinder is changing too. He's more independent now, wandering farther from the barn, exploring. She watches him dig for grubs, bat at a butterfly, climb a tree with clumsy determination. He's becoming what he was always meant to be, wild. The bond between them is still strong. He comes when she calls, sleeps beside her at night, but she can feel him pulling towards something bigger, the forest calling to him in a language she can't speak. She knows it's time. She scouts a location carefully. A valley to the east, far from roads, dense with forest and a stream that runs year-round. She's seen scat there, old tracks, signs that other bears den in the area. It's good territory, safe. She picks a morning when the air is warm and the sun is bright. She leads Cinder there, a slow hike, letting him explore, watching him grow more alert, more alive with every step. When they reach the valley, she sits on a fallen log, and he sits beside her, and she wraps her arms around him one last time. He's too big now for her to hold properly, but she tries. She buries her face in his fur and smells earth and wildness and something sweet she can't name. "I have to let you go," she whispers. "You don't belong to me. You never did. This is your world. You're ready." He pulls away and looks at her with those dark eyes, and she wonders what he understands. If he knows this is goodbye. If he'll remember her when winter comes again. She stands and walks a few steps back the way they came. Cinder watches. She waves her hand, shooing him. "Go on, go." He doesn't move. She turns her back and starts walking. She hears him whine, a sound that stabs her heart. She doesn't turn around. She keeps walking. One step, another. Behind her, silence. Then the soft sound of paws on leaves moving away, deeper into the forest. She stops and looks back. He's at the edge of the trees, looking at her. For a long moment they stand there, girl and bear, 20 yards between them and a gulf she can't cross. Then he turns and walks into the forest, and the shadows swallow him and he's gone. She stands there until the sun dips low and the valley fills with blue twilight. Then she walks back to the barn alone. The silence is crushing. The space beside her feels wrong, empty. That night she doesn't sleep. She lies by the fire and listens to the forest, and aches with the kind of loss that has no name. But beneath the grief is something else. Something bright and solid, pride. She saved him, gave him a chance. Let him go when it mattered. That's love. The real kind. The kind that doesn't hold on. The kind that opens its hands and lets the wild thing fly. Days pass. She doesn't see him again. Part of her worries. Imagines all the things that could go wrong, but she quiets that voice. He's strong. He's ready. She has to trust that. She turns her attention to her own survival, her own future. She patches the barn properly, thinking maybe she'll stay through spring into summer. She plants a small garden in a sunny patch near the barn, seeds she saved from the ranger cache. Lettuce, beans, carrots. It's a gamble, but it's hope. She hikes down to the valley town one day. A full day's walk, and buys supplies with money she earns doing odd jobs, splitting wood, hauling water. She doesn't tell anyone where she lives. Doesn't mention the cub. Just takes her pay and disappears back into the mountains. She's still alone. Still surviving. But it's different now. She's not running. She's not hiding. She's choosing this. The wilderness. The silence. The hard work and the beauty and the solitude. She's building a life, small and strange and hers. One evening in early April, she's sitting outside the barn watching the stars come out when she hears something in the trees. Her heart leaps. She stands, searching the shadows. A shape moves at the edge of the clearing, dark, large. She holds her breath. The bear steps into the moonlight and she sees him. Cinder, bigger, wilder, but unmistakably him. He stops 10 feet away. She doesn't move. Doesn't call. Just lets him look. He sniffs the air. Takes one step closer. She sees recognition in his eyes, or maybe she just wants to. They stand there in the quiet. The distance between them an agreement. You're okay. I'm okay. We survived. Then he turns and melts back into the forest, and she knows somehow that this is the last time. He came to say goodbye. To show her he's whole, and now he's gone. Back to the world that made him, and she's free too. Free of the weight of keeping him alive. Free to build her own path. Free to live. She sits back down and looks at the stars and feels for the first time since the fire something like peace. The winter nearly killed her. The loneliness nearly broke her. But she found a starving cub in the snow, and saving him saved her too. He gave her a reason to get up, to fight, to care, and in the end, letting him go taught her the hardest lesson. Love isn't holding on. It's knowing when to open your hands. She thinks about the garden she planted, the barn she's repairing, the town an hour's walk away where people are starting to know her name. She's 16. She's an orphan. She's a girl who survived winter in the wilderness with a bear cub. And she's going to be okay. They both are. The mountain is still hard, still cold, still dangerous. But it's also beautiful, full of life, full of second chances. She pulls her father's coat tighter and watches the moon rise and thinks, I came here to survive. I found a reason to live. And that's enough. That's everything. If this story moved you, hit the like button right now. Subscribe to this channel and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another story about resilience, survival, and the unexpected bonds that change everything. Drop a comment and tell me, what living being or unexpected bond helped you survive your hardest season? Maybe it was a person, an animal, or even a place. I want to hear your story. And if you know someone who needs to hear this today, someone who's in their own winter and needs a reason to keep going, share this video with them. Sometimes a story is the spark that keeps the fire alive. Thank you for listening. I'll see you in the next one.